I used to wake up at 5 p.m. and it ruined my health. And no, this is not clickbait. But before I begin, disclaimer, everyone is different. If you wake up at 5 a.m. and feel great, I'm genuinely happy for you, really. Congratulations, you have found what works for you. But, and listen carefully, this is my personal experience. I want to share how extremely early wake-ups affected me, why it didn't work for me, and how it impacted my health and life. Some people really need more sleep, and some people need less. Someone can easily fall asleep at 9 p.m. and someone, no matter if they wake up at 4 a.m., still won't fall asleep before 10. I hope we're on the same page. So on, I can continue. The start of any new habit is always tough. Even though, at least in my country, it coincided with the time change and people got an extra hour of sleep, it was still hard. When I first started waking up at 5 a.m., the first 10 days were awful. I was sluggish and everything felt slow to process. My performance at school suffered. Yes, at that time I was 16 and in my final year of high school. Perfect timing to change up my morning routine, right? But then, surprisingly, I started to like it. It felt great because I had time just for myself. No one bothered me, complete solitude, peace and quiet. Mornings were the time I read books and wrote my first short stories and novels. And honestly, during that time, I seriously improved my writing skills. But now I understand it wasn't morning magic. What actually helped was having a dedicated time for those activities. The specific time didn't matter. What mattered was that the time was set and consistent. I even made myself a calendar. Well, sort of. I took a sheet of paper, divided it into 90 squares, stuck it to my closet and started checking off every day I woke up at 5 a.m. And I actually did it. I was proud of myself. But as they say, nothing is ever perfect. My health clearly didn't appreciate the change, and for a while I lost my period. When that happens, it means your body is seriously stressed. On top of that, my heart started acting weird. I began to feel and hear it beating 24/7. My blood pressure dropped too. Reminder, I was still in school and I had to attend both mandatory classes and extra prep courses for exams. Do you think that distracted me? Of course it did! Eventually I was hospitalized for 2 weeks. Well, technically it was a day hospital. I would go in the morning and be sent home in the afternoon. And even under those conditions, I kept up my routine. The voice of reason told me, "Listen, honey, you should stop." Yes, I should, but I won't. I'm a very stubborn person. Once a strong idea gets into my head, I'll go to extremes to make it happen. Even at that time, despite everything going on, my mom didn't really interfere, though she did ask. Waking up at 5, is it actually okay for you? Yes, mom, I got so much done during that time. It's my time, so it's fine. But I was lying, both to her and to myself. Waking up at 5 a.m., hard but doable. Going to bed at 9, that was hell. Because no matter when I woke up at 5, 4, even 3 a.m., I just couldn't fall asleep before 10 a.m. You might say, then just go to bed at 10. What's the problem? Here's the paradox. If I went to bed at 10, I'd fall asleep easily, but I feel tired, groggy, drained the next day. But if I went to sleep at 9, tossed and turned and fell asleep at 10, I'd feel fine. Go to bed at 10 and feel asleep at 10, bad. Go to bed at 9, fell asleep at 10, good. Explain that to me. Ever since I started waking up at 5, I began waking up in the middle of the night. I'd check the time, 2 a.m., then again at 3. and I have to fall asleep all over again, even though I always struggled with falling asleep. It was a vicious circle. The wake-up time didn't matter at all. And this was just autumn. You know what comes after autumn? Winter. And what do we celebrate in winter? Right, New Year. And when is it celebrated? At exactly midnight. I don't know about you, but in countries like Ukraine and so on, New Year is considered a family holiday. I'm the kind of person who, once the routine is broken, can't get back to it. I spent the whole of December full of anxious thoughts. On the one hand, I wanted to celebrate the new year with my family like a normal person. On the other hand, my routine. Those thoughts consumed me, drained all my energy. In the end, I chose to celebrate with my family because I really wanted to. I didn't want to trade them for some soulless schedule. Coincidentally, I got sick around that time. And that was the only time I let myself rest while being sick. Because every time after that, I'd still wake up at 5 a.m., sick or not. Since then, I started getting colds every 3 months. Yes, that's often. I used to get sick once a year, but still not as often as once a month, which started happening when I entered college. And then came spring and the time change. It was total chaos. Many countries have cancelled the transmission to winter and summertime. Why can't we do this here? I had to get up an hour earlier and go to bed later. And bonus, longer daylight hours. On one hand, great, now it's bright in the morning. On the other hand, falling asleep became even harder. I simply couldn't sleep. At 9 p.m. it was still light outside. Yes, I wore a mask, but it didn't help me. The light is still come through. Even before the time change, falling asleep at 9 was hard. Now it was impossible. I barely managed to fall asleep, woke up early, and during the day I'd just crash. I'd lie on the couch and that's it. I'd pass out. Oh man, I fell asleep again. And I constantly scolded myself for being tired. I even punished myself in different ways. I kept thinking, what's the point? I go to bed at 9, wake up at 5. Isn't that enough? But apparently, biologically, it just wasn't. I don't know how I lasted as long as I did. At some point, my body just gave up.
Oh man, I did it again.
And even then, I didn't stop. I somehow passed my exams and got into college. That's even a new chapter begin, student life. At that point, I started drinking coffee. Before that, I was fine without it. But then I couldn't function without it. And yes, for a while I felt more stable and stopped randomly falling asleep during the day. But it was only a temporary fix. Classes were harder, homework were heavier, and on top of that, I volunteered to be class president because I wanted to. Gradually, month by month, I started having emotional breakdowns. And during that time, for the first time in many years, I had a fever. My past 5 years at school, I didn't have a fever. I just had a high temperature when I got sick. Not only did I not cancel my morning routine, I kept going to college until I physically couldn't anymore. From that point on, I started getting sick monthly. And it continued through all 3 years of college. If during the first year my mom either stayed silent or just asked if I was okay, then during this period she started demanding that I stop. Please stop waking up that early. What do you need those 5 a.m. wake-ups for? You haven't had a decent night's sleep this whole time. By that time I was actually ready to stop, but I kept doing out of habit. And then I had a nervous breakdown. I'd come home from classes, lie down and cry for hours. I couldn't do anything. Even my mom, who doesn't believe in depression, burnout or anything like that, looked at me and said, "That's it. Stop immediately." Now I realize that when I was waking up at 5 a.m., what I really needed was to hear that I didn't have to do it to be successful. I was literally waiting for permission to stop because I couldn't give that permission to myself. By that time, I could no longer give up my morning routine. Besides, it took me 45 minutes to get to college on foot, or just as long by minibus if you included the waiting time. I really grew to love those mornings when I didn't just wake up, get dressed, grab a quick bite and rush out the door only waking up fully on the way. I loved waking up properly, having a normal breakfast, getting myself together and then heading off to class. So I reached a temporary compromise and started waking up at 6 a.m. instead of 5, even though I couldn't give up coffee. Without it, I felt like sleepy amoeba. To somehow make up for it, I started sleeping in a little on weekends. But the health issues I had to deal with lasted a long time and I'm still dealing with them. And you know what? Waking up at 5 a.m. isn't as productive as it seems. No, if you're spending the whole day fighting off sleep. If you can't fall asleep in the evening, it doesn't matter what time you got up. What's so productive about it? Back when I was waking up at 5 a.m., I even wanted to switch to polyphasic sleep, to sleep even less and get even more done. But online there are all sorts of warnings saying you should consult a doctor before trying that. Funny how there are no much disclaimers about waking up ridiculously early. But it's not for everyone either. Still, I did learn something useful from all of it. Waking up at the same time every day is actually great and can be really helpful. But what time that is depends on your lifestyle, your health and how much sleep you need to feel okay. Eventually, when I fully transitioned to working for myself, I started waking up at 8 a.m. and going to bed at 10 p.m. And you know what? That's my ideal schedule. I still have peaceful mornings. No one bothers me. And most importantly, I'm no longer destroying my health. On the contrary, I'm supporting it. To wrap it up, I'll say it again. All people are different. What works for one person may not work for another. And one more thing, there is no magic pill. If you think waking up at 5 a.m. will instantly make you super successful and rich, well, maybe it will. And maybe it won't. The internet is full of stories about people who get up at 5 and crush it. But how many stories about the people who got up at 5 and got nowhere? Think about, please. Please take care of yourself. And I will see you in the next or previous video. Bye bye. See you later.